rolling on. And we appreciate you checking us out. I'm Bubba O'Neil. As I say on a daily basis, this podcast is a space for the many extraordinary athletes, coaches, executives, and broadcasters that got their start right here in the Golden Horseshoe and made their mark nationally and internationally. From a wee town of Merseyside, England, to good old Burlington, Ontario, this supreme athlete became a master of many sports. Identified at a Hamilton Ticats High School evaluation camp, this junior football standout of the Burlington Braves parlayed a strong work ethic and execution with being a stand-up teammate, playing for just over a decade in the Canadian Football League. Those same skills translated to being an outstanding leader in the community, dedicating years to the Peel Police Force. If you ask anyone, folks, what do you think of Lee Knight? The answer is always the same. He's a great guy. And that great guy is right here on our couch. Congratulations, because you've just concluded your second retirement.
You got it, Bubba. Yes, sir. I'm a happy man.
Are you a happy guy?
I'm walking around with a permanent smile on my face these days.
Hey, thank you for joining us here. And I do mean that. I mean, I think of people that say, I ask a simple question, who's your favorite Tiger Cat? Lee Knight comes out more than you would think, my friend.
That's nice to hear. That's really nice to hear.
Well, you put together some wonderful years in the sport, and let's go right back. I mean, you were a multi-sport kind of guy in your days back at Lord Elgin High School. I don't even think they call it that anymore, but that's what I know it as, and you and I know it as.
Yes, we do.
Back in Burlington at Robert Bateman. Yeah, that's what it's called. What identified football for you as the difference, or at least the path that you wanted to go to, as opposed to other sports?
Well, it's funny, Bubba, because I grew up playing soccer. Track and field first, actually the Burlington Legion Track and Field Club, and soccer was a passion. Born in England, my dad loved soccer, became my soccer coach, and we traveled North America playing soccer. And then, I got into high school, Frontenac first public school, played volleyball, basketball, did the same at Lord Elgin because we did not have a football team. And that changed my last year of high school. I don't know if it was grade 13 or 14. But anyways, Tam Morrison. And Tam Morrison left Oakville Trafalgar to become the phys ed head at Lord Elgin, and he said, you guys don't have a football team? We got to change that. So Ralph Trod was the head coach, and most of us had not played a lick of tackle football. We played on Sunday afternoons, knocking the crap out of each other on the field, but the first time I put pads on, and it all worked out.
So what... Again, you had to have some guidance, right? And obviously the Ticats saw you. Now, I'm gonna have to. You have always been the body beautiful. I can just say that to you. You always had the great physique. Did you at that time?
I was a little smaller and thinner, but I had a growth spurt. Like you said, I went to the Ticat high school camp that Bobby Krause used to run years ago. And Doug Trimble was the head coach of the Burlington Braves. He brought me out, and I started playing junior football. And it wasn't long that Al Bruno, who was the head coach of the Tiger Cats, lived around the corner from Nelson Stadium. And he'd walk his dog and check us out. And he noticed me and kept an eye on me. And
But you excel with the Braves, right? So when you were at the Braves, I mean, again, and it's hard to make that jump from junior football because it's being played at one speed, and then you get to the Canadian Football League. What was that transition like for you?
I remember my first training camp in 1986, Bubba. So I had played for the Braves 84, 85, and they wanted me at training camp. I went to a free agent camp, and they called me 2 days before camp started and said, we want you at training camp because we want to groom you. And wow, amazing. So I went to Brock University for 3 weeks, and I learned more in 2 days than I had the previous 3 years of football because I just didn't know technique, everything about it.
You were really raw.
So raw. But I was athletic, and they worked on it. and they kept me there on the practice roster for the whole year. In '86, I was playing football during the day with the Ticats and practicing with the Braves in the evening and playing with the Braves on the weekends. So I was in great shape.
I guess so. And of course, coaches can be a little bit more demanding at that point too, because you think about training camp, and I think about what's going on with training camp right now, and the sort of different attitude that the coaches have to take with, there's, first of all, there's a union now, players union, that has a lot to do with it, and history or stats and different things have taught us about how to treat the body, how to push it, how not to. But at that time, I'm thinking about a guy like Ron Lancaster or an Al Bruno at that time. The two-a-days were a grind, weren't they?
Wow. I tell you, obviously now with concussions and the protocol that they have, and, I went to practice the other day and there wasn't much hitting going on, and that's understandable. And now with the Guardian caps that they have, which is great, but we would practice 2 hours from 9 to 11. And then we'd practice for, from 3 to 5, and it was a lot of contact. And that was 3 weeks. And that training camp back then was 3 weeks. I remember my first training camp, I was getting paid $3 a day.
Come on.
I got $21 at the end of the week as a rookie. I was like, all right, I made it to the big time.
That's like a Burger King special or something like that. Like, who do you get for, even then, $21?
$21.
Wow.
Yeah. 50 a practice.
Wow. Isn't that something? Those days, the Tiger Cats training camp, was it not at Brock University at the time?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, that was completely different. I mean, look at the way, I'm not going to say the way the athletes are babied right now, but it is a big difference.
It's so different.
It's so different. So, 86, you're with the Tiger Cats, immediate success, and how did that feel?
It was great. The funny thing is, I obviously always followed the Tiger Cats. The year before they went to the Grey Cup in '85, Kenny Hobart was a quarterback. Obviously Rocky DiPietro, Grover Covington, Mike Walker, Howard Fields, all these awesome players. And here I am in training camp with them. And I'm thinking, how am I going to compete with these guys? I was 21 years old. But then I realized that we're all human. Everybody's making the same mistakes, and I performed as well as I could, and I got recognized, and that's why they kept me around and wanted me to keep grooming me through '86 into '87 with me playing one more year of junior football.
Right.
But then Rocky, I was playing behind Rocky at the time on the practice roster, and he broke his ribs. Third game into the season. And that's when I got my break.
Well, and you get a big break playing that sort of fullback, slot back, running back position. But you ask anyone about Lee Knight, and I'm told you knew how to play special teams.
Well, that was the key, right? I had to play special teams. As a Canadian, as a backup, you had to perform on special teams until you have that opportunity. A lot of guys are just special teams players right through. They'll back up at linebacker, receiver, D line, whatever it is. But when you're a Canadian, you have to play special teams. You have to know what you're doing.
I talk about this continually, and it's like waxing poetic with the past, and we always look back at the past and how wonderful it was. But can you translate to me and the many listening and watching, what was it like to be a Hamilton Tiger Cat back in the day, especially a guy from Burlington playing at Ivor Wynne Stadium, a place where guys like you and I played our high school championships?
That's right, exactly, Bubba. And it was like the hallowed halls of Ivor Wynne and the nostalgia and everything that was included in it, and then the fans, classic fans like Hamilton. They're not any, they're still working, hard working people, and so many of them, they don't have a lot of money, but they have their season tickets, and they want to go to the Grey Cup, and those are their priorities. So you love the fans, and I respected the fans. I tried to do as much as I could in the community, but playing at Ivor Wynne, it was a special thing, and I never took it for granted. Fortunately, I stayed healthy, and that was important.
Remind me here, correct me if I'm wrong, did your first touchdown come on Labor Day?
My first touchdown was in Ottawa.
Okay.
And we were beating Ottawa like 40-10 late in the game. I got to play slot back, and that was my first time I got on the offense. Actually, that's it right there, Bubba.
Whoa! Okay.
And Tom Porras hit me in the flat, and defensive back missed the tackle, and I went up the sideline for 35, 40 yards for my first touchdown.
What'd that feel like?
It was amazing, and the first guy to embrace me on that was Earl Winfield.
Oh, wow.
Who was one of the most spectacular teammates I've ever played with. And it was funny, and Kenneth Rare was on Ottawa at that time, and he was the second guy to congratulate me because I had to go on the kickoff, extra point, and then the kickoff right away, right? So, yeah, that was special.
What was this like for your parents? Because you said the English background probably didn't know much about North American football.
No.
What was it like for them to see their son excelling with this local team?
Well, it's funny because playing the sports I did, my parents never missed a game, whether it was my track and field, soccer, basketball, volleyball, whatever it was, they never missed a game. And then when I started doing well in football, they were obviously there for every Braves games, as well as my in-laws. They were there for every game. It was funny, my father-in-law's first game, that he was an Argo fan, and the first game he came to, he had a hat and he had sewed it. So when the Ticat offense had the ball, it would be Hamilton hat, and then he would switch it around when the Argos had the ball, So, but my parents, the love and support they had for me, and the way they guided me. We didn't have a whole lot of money, but they always made sure that I was, playing a sport.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful thing. You talk about '86 going back, and that was a special year for so many people in the Hamilton area. Tiger Cat fans, the Al Bruno years again, and then of course he would go on and coach at McMaster. But that '86, tell me a little bit about that club that won a Grey Cup.
Well, like being the new guy, I was 21 years old learning. I remember some of my first practices in training camp, and I had to do, scout team for the most part. So I'm running scout team against our starting defense, and I have to run 5-yard crossers in front of Ben Zambiasi. It wasn't pleasant because Ben had a certain way to just put his helmet under your chin just to let don't come into my area, right? So you're playing against Ben Zambiasi, Leo Ezrins, Frank Robinson, Grover Covington, Rod Skill, like some amazing football players. Paul Bennett, was our safety, Howard Fields, Mark Streeter, like I could go on. But that team, the way that it all transpired at the end of the season with the 2-game playoff.
Oh, yes.
And we were losing to the Argos the first week, and then went into Toronto and squeaked it out, right? It was,
like that. You guys were way down in that series.
Yes.
Like you can tell me now, when you suited up for that second game, did you think you were coming back?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't suit up because I was on the practice roster, right? But
as an organization.
Yeah. I didn't have a whole lot of the way that Toronto dominated the first game. And then even going into the second game, we had some injuries. I think our starting right tackle, John Malinowski, was out. He was hurt. But Mike Kerrigan, Walter Bender was our running back, and he ran up a storm, and the defense stood strong. And then that was it. As soon as that game was won, and then I get word that I'm going out to BC with the team, because I'd never traveled with the team. I was 21. I just practiced at home, and went out, from the Tuesday to the Sunday, and practice every day, and tried to make sure that defense was prepared, and it was amazing.
So you advance, I guess, a year or two later, as you talked about Rocky DiPietro, and this is football, next man up mentality, 2-5, get in there, and you just roll from there on for the rest, basically, of your career with the Tiger Cats. You talk about the Grey Cup, and some say the greatest game ever played, or at least, at the very least, the greatest Grey Cup ever played. Unfortunately, the Tiger Cats lose. That, for anyone that's can't figure that out, that's the Rough Riders game at the Sky Dome, packed house.
Yes.
That's a new facility.
Yes.
What a high that game must have been.
I tell you what, Bubba, that the memory of that whole week was just awesome. Brand new stadium. We knew it was going to be full. Just down the road, there's going to be a lot of Hamilton fans. At that point, I had started playing some slot back. I'd started a few games. We went into that game. I wasn't starting, but obviously playing special teams. Later in the game, because of the ratio, Earl Winfield didn't start that game, which thinking now, something wrong with that. But they had to get Earl in at wideout, which meant that I think Wally Zatilny was the Canadian wideout. Earl started, so another American had to come out, and then I went to slot back, and I caught two balls late in the game.
What should have been the winning drive.
That's right, exactly. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, Tony Champion's amazing catch, and I was the slot on that side. I always tell people that, Champ made that beautiful catch that is, go down as history, but I took the safety, the linebacker, and the halfback. They triple teamed me just so he could have single coverage, take away the threat. Anyways.
You cleared it all out.
You got it, Bubba.
Boy, and it's crazy to think Ken Austin would later be the head coach and president of the Tiger Cats, and at one point there, and what he did. And, when Saskatchewan have won so few great cups as well, too. And that had to happen. And again, but anyone that has watched that game or seen even the fourth quarter of that game would realize what an amazing, amazing game that was. Your career continues, though, and you develop yourself as a guy that becomes really trustworthy on offense, and a guy that made no excuses on offense as well, too. Talk to me about the rest of your career.
Well, I went back every year as a slot back. 1991 was the difference when, the year with the Rocket and the Argos. We went into the Labor Day game. We were 0-8, and we just lost. Al Bruno had been fired. John Gregory was the new head coach, and we went in with two American tailbacks. Different coaches' mentalities. American coaches, they need to have those Americans in the backfield, and we had two Americans in the backfield, and one got hurt in the first quarter, and the other got hurt early second quarter. Ernie Schremeyer was the backup running back, Canadian. And then they were like, okay, we need some. Lee, get in there. I'd never played running back before. I got in there, and Ernie and I ran the ball. The O-line was loving it, and at that time, we were all Canadian O-linemen, and we were just hammering the ball.
You remember those Hogs?
Oh, boy. Miles Gurrell, Daryl Harley, Dale Sanderson, Mike Dirks, Ralph Schultz. Amazing, right? And we just hammered that ball, and we beat the Argos, and that was our first win of the season. They went on to win the Grey Cup, but that game will always be special to me, and that was it. After that, I stayed at fullback.
Now, it was only till I started to look at your statistical story that I didn't even know this. I just assumed in my head that you were a Tiger Cat your whole career. How did you get to Ottawa?
Oh, that was a funny path. In 1996, I was in Florida. My wife and I were vacationing in Florida in March, and my father called me. No cell phones back then. Lee, I just saw CHTV, and you've been picked up by Montreal in a Canadian dispersal draft because Montreal didn't have the team the year before. The American expansion went by the wayside. The Baltimore team moved up to Montreal.
Yes.
And so they needed Canadians. So I was selected from Hamilton. They didn't protect me. And I went to Montreal. And I was there. And that training camp was, oh my gosh, every single practice. It was full on. And, you had a lot of new guys and trying to make this team. I was battered. And then at the end of training camp, I was called in. And I was traded to Ottawa because in 95, Dieter Brock was the offensive coordinator at Hamilton, and he was released, got the offensive coordinator's job in Ottawa, and he had this run and shoot sort of funny offense, and I was that inside receiver release guy. So I went to Ottawa. Dave Archer was our quarterback. That was my
Dave Archer. Good arm.
Great arm. And one of my biggest games, we scored 3 touchdowns. I scored 3 touchdowns in a game against BC at home in Ottawa. Very memorable game as well. And it was a funny year. And Leo Cahill was the GM. And I would sit with Leo at least twice a week in his office and listen to his stories from when he was with the Argos with Joe Theismann, and it was amazing. He was an awesome, awesome person. And then I had gone home. We had a break over the Labor Day weekend. I came home, and I went to the Ticat game, and I ended up talking to Don Southern, who was the head coach that time. And he says, Rooster, we need you back. Like, you know, I don't know. I'm not supposed to be talking to you, but we'd love to have you back. So the next morning I drove back to Ottawa. I went right to Leo Cale's office. I said, Leo, I'm not doing much here for you. You got so many young Canadians that are on the practice roster that can do what I'm doing. I want to go home. My wife and I just had our daughter Katie, and I wanted to come back home to Burlington, Hamilton. So he picked up the phone. Hey, Sudsy, I got Lee Knight here. He wants to come back and play with you. Yep. Okay. Yeah. 4th round draft pick sounds great. Reaches across, Lee, good luck to you.
That easy.
And that was it. I went back to my apartment that I had.
You, in essence, orchestrated your own trade.
I did, Bubba. It was amazing. And, you know, I came back and I finished it up. 96, 97 was my last year.
Here's the tough question. When do you know it's over?
Well, I think I knew. My last year, I blew my knee in Toronto. And I was 32 at that point. We had 3 children, was busy, and I'm thinking, okay, I just blew my knee out. I did go, like, expecting to possibly go to training camp the next year, but in the back of my mind thinking, this could be it. At that point, it was 11 years I had played. Mm-hmm. So Ron Lancaster was the head coach. He came in, and obviously made a lot of changes. Mm-hmm. And we had a discussion. I decided to call it a day.
And it is, there is truth to this, and I've heard this from athletes in many sports. You do kind of know, because if you're going to, especially in football, you're going to make that commitment. Training camp, everything, the 2-a-days, the practices, the travel, the games. If you're not 100% in, you'll never be yourself.
No, exactly. And with the knee, mm-hmm. and just the security of my limbs now, I'm thinking, mm-hmm. and with my children, yeah, I think it's time to pack it in. It was tough. You know, you play 11 years and you have this routine over 11 years. Mm-hmm. Didn't miss the playing side of it. Mm-hmm. I missed the locker room. I missed the guys and the camaraderie, and everybody else would say the same thing.
I will always remember Mike Morreale sitting right where you sat and having that conversation about, you know, because he was forced out. Remember him and Hitchcock, forced out.
Yeah.
And what that felt like. And Hitch went on to play another year, went to Edmonton, and he said that didn't even feel right. But Mike said that was it. But he said the most challenging part of his life is, what do I do now? Because, mm-hmm. like you said, everything's a routine. Everything's been set out for you.
That's right.
What was that sort of transformation like for you?
It was difficult. It really was. At that time, my off-season job, I was working with young offenders in a correctional setting, and I did finish playing football. I got on full-time working with these young offenders and struggled with, I'm not playing football anymore. Had a hard time watching it. Definitely didn't go to a Ticat game for a couple of years. I just had to, separate myself from it for a while. And then, I transitioned okay. Mm-hmm. And now, I started going back to football games with some friends, mm-hmm. and then eventually my kids, obviously, they love it now. They're all season ticket holders. Mm-hmm. And it was a tough transition, but it all worked out.
So it clearly did work out, and you talk about the correctional kind of thing, and all of a sudden, how did the police services, because this is now your second party, like it's like a second life, isn't it?
It really was. Yeah. It really was. I think back, because I didn't go to university, I was working while I was playing Braves, mm-hmm. And then fortunately I was, playing in the CFL for all those years. And my off-season job, I was working at Sillaps as a correctional officer.
In Oakville, yes, okay.
Yeah, and then I just, at some point, that was, when was that, 97, things changed with that facility. It privatized. I stayed with the new private company. And around 2003, I said, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And I always thought of policing. Mm-hmm. And I knew some friends that were in policing. Had some good chats with them and decided to throw my hat in the ring. And in 2004, I got hired with Peel Police, and I just retired April 30th.
It's amazing. But to that point now, because I know a lot of friends that have gone to Halton, Toronto, Peel, like yourself. there's a whole training camp for you to be a police officer all over again.
Oh my
Look at
gosh.
your face.
I tell you what, Bubba, I had to go to the police college, right, for 3 months. Yeah. And the training, the tests, everything about it. I stood my ground really well when it came to the physical aspect. I remember part of our training, we had to run a 100-meter dash. Well, I'm the oldest guy in the whole class, and I had the fastest time.
Yeah.
Right? I'll always wear that one. But going away to police college for 3 months and passing all the tests, and I latched on to the brightest kid there, and I said, you got to help me out. So he was my special tutor, and it all worked out. I had a great career with Peel, a lot of fun, and everywhere you go, it's all about the relationships, right? And I got a lot of great friendships and formed a lot of great relationships with my coworkers over the years.
And again, teammates on either side of your professions as well too. Maybe recognized, I guess, in some sense as an officer because you're wearing a uniform. But what was it like being in the community, like being out there and doing your job?
It was great. With policing, the first thing you do is you go on the road, right? And you're in the cruiser and you're going call to call to call. And then eventually I got into our neighborhood policing unit. And when I got into that, now you're associated with the schools. And I was associated with St. Marcelina's High School in Mississauga, which is a bit of a football power. So I coached football, right?
Oh, nice. Okay.
And the service loved it. There was PR there. Eventually, you think about when Angela Mosca and Joe Cap had their little incident.
Yes.
So the next year after that was the 100th Grey Cup in Toronto. And Leo Ezrins was running the alumni, and he thought it'd be a great idea if myself and Kelly Wilshire, who was an OPP, we put our uniforms on and we escort Ange into the alumni luncheon at the Grey Cup the year after he got in the incident with Joe Cap, just as a bit of a a little shtick. So we escorted him like, you're not getting any trouble this time, Ange. And then that transpired into or transitioned into us bringing the Grey Cup in our #1 uniform. And I did that, I think, 4 different times at the different luncheons over the years.
Right.
And I just finished it up with this year's, or 2023's. It's my last time we'd escort the cup in for the luncheon. So.
And it's a crossover because you're with your like other brethren and brothers as well too. Some of them you actually broke bread with on the football field as well too. That has been kind of a treat.
It was, and over the years it's increased. So it's fire, paramedics, police. At the last Grey Cup in Hamilton, we had, I think there might have been 10 of us, in our full #1 uniforms bringing the cup in. So it's special, and you see the players I played with over the years. I remember in the 2021 Grey Cup during COVID there in Hamilton, and Anthony Calvillo, who was one of my quarterbacks in Hamilton, he's like looking at me like, what are you doing wearing that, right? No idea that I was a police officer. So it all worked out.
One of the constants I've noticed with your pictures and things that you've posted on social media, and knowing you a little bit because we have some common friends as well too, and been at some events as well, and one common theme seems to be there, and that's your wife. You're just celebrating a pretty lengthy anniversary, aren't you?
Amazing, yes. My wife Lisa and I, we met in public school, and we were just friends for the longest time.
Just friends.
Just friends. That's it. Just friends. And then we get into high school and things got a little closer, and we got married when we were younger, and we just finished we just celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations!
So, yeah, it's been awesome.
And 3 kids to go.
We have 3 children.
Are they like daddy or mommy?
Well, they're a bit of both, right?
Oh, okay.
My daughter is like mommy, and I have twin boys, right? And one of the boys looks very similar to me. The other one is a hybrid between my wife and I. So that's Sam and Connor. Actually, Connor is going to be he's part of the Lakeshore officiating crew. He's going to be doing some games this year in Hamilton as a ball boy, running the ball in. But Sam lives in Kingston. Katie and Connor are here in Burlington. So they're amazing kids.
You know, it's funny because there's always this thing, you know, mom, dad, the parents, and then the kids. I mean, I see this because I don't have kids and I'm not married, but I see it with all my friends and people I know. There's always this, you know, you're old dad or you're old mom, whatever. But do they ever like go to YouTube or see, this is my old man on the field? Like, yeah, you look pretty good.
It's funny, you know, Bubba, because over the years, my brother, I was fortunate, my older brother, Mark, he taped every game that I ever played in, you know, the old VHS, and he would take every one of my plays that I was involved in and splice it onto a master copy, and he called it the Knight Rider highlights, right? Because that was a nickname back then. And so my daughter has since put it on YouTube, right? So she has no problem telling everybody that you know, I'm on YouTube, and my kids love, you know, going to every game. They go to every game. They have their season tickets. They love going to Hamilton, and they love seeing me be recognized there. And yeah.
You look at the teams that I said, because you experience a Grey Cup victory and you've been to a Grey Cup game and you're still in this community, and this is a community that's starved for a winner. And not to say that the Ticats aren't winners, but they haven't lifted that trophy since 1999. We're coming up on 25 years now. And there's a new regime that's in there right now. You know, a new coach, new GM, some new players, as there always is every year. What would you tell this edition of the team? I don't know if you can tell them how to win, or how would you address them?
It's so difficult because over the years, right, over the last 10 years, we've had some good teams, and we have, I don't know if we've missed the playoffs in the last 10 years, right? We've always been there. Whether we've been hosting the East Final or hosting a East semifinal, we've come so close. You know, the last one in BC when Banks returned it, but we had the penalty from behind that shouldn't have been a penalty. That was as close as we got. I went to Saskatchewan that was 10 years, 11 years ago.
They beat us pretty good.
Oh, they beat us good. My buddy George Jeffrey and I were sitting right in the middle of all the Saskatchewan fans. Yeah, you know, it's
Calgary,
yeah.
15-3.
Oh my gosh. Like it just hurts. It really does. But I mean, the team is strong, and the support from Bob Young all the way down. Now that O is just the president, he was wearing a lot of hats last year. Milanovic, obviously, his history with football, and I think he's a good coach. Ed Hervey bringing in the talent. Just got to stay healthy. I think if we stay healthy, we got a great shot. Great shot.
In a couple of, in fact, I think it's next week, actually, you and I will be bumping into each other at the Burlington Sports Hall of Fame, in which you are a member and you have been inducted.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah.
Are you not a member?
I am too.
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. But
much deserved.
But this is my podcast. I get the answer questions around here. You know, for yourself, and I know I have an answer, but again, this is your show. I've said the same thing to you, and I say it freely about, and I really meant this. But I say, do you know Lee Knight? What a great guy! What a great guy! That's got to make you proud. When you're recognized by your community, because you stayed in your community, right? There's a lot of people, as you know, you played with American players, and they're in and they're out. And I mean, and I understand it. It's part of their home, and this was a job. But you had your jobs here in this community. And to be recognized by your community and recognized by your community, how does that feel?
It's rewarding. It really is.
When you think about it, you played a long time ago.
I did. I played, 97 was my last year. Slowly coming up on 30 years ago. Well, it's a long time, but I love going to the games. And, not everybody knows who I am, because especially the way that they market the games now, a lot of younger kids, right? But to see those people come up and, hey, Lee Knight, I love the way you played, man. You put your head down, you just take that guy out. I love the way you played, right? Just to hear that, it's good. And it's great for my family, especially my kids that are in tow, right? So, the fans are still recognizing me a little bit, because we are getting on. But it's always nice. The off season, I did my fair share of appearances in the community, and we would just show up. It might be a little different now, I don't know, but you got something going on. We had a basketball team that played, high schools in the area. It was a lot of fun. I played with a lot of great guys that have stayed in the area. I just got together the other day with 3 old linemen that we all played. And it's a special bond. And the CFL is such a fraternity because so many guys go on and play in different teams across the league, and we all know each other, right? So it's great.
Well, it's been great having you and great talking about some of those old days that seem like not so long ago, and so many memories. And you talk about it, the relationships that you build along the ways in both of your professions. And Lee, it's been great to see that you've thrived in this area and been an example to so many people in this area. And like I said, you're a good guy, and I'm honored to know you. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure, Bubba.
Right on, my man. Hey, that's your Sportsline podcast for the day. And as you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports, especially with people that give to their community and do well. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event to promote the Sportsline podcast, we want to hear from you. Hit that thumbs up, like, subscribe, 5-star button if you have something to say. Got a good Lee night memory? I want to know about it. For the wonderful people that make the Sportsline podcast possible, thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.